She smiled as the goblets were raised, the scent of roasted pheasant and wine mingling with whispers of loyalty and betrayal. The queen, adorned in black silk and pearls, offered a toast to peace. By midnight, they began to fall. Some clutched their throats, others convulsed, eyes rolled, mouths foamed. One by one, they collapsed. And at the head of the table, Queen Catherine de Medici watched, silent, composed. They had trusted her. She had fed them poison. But what happened next shocked the world. France, the 16th century. A kingdom bleeding from religious war and political betrayal. At the center stood Catherine de Medici, a Florentine-born queen, widowed at just 43, now the power behind the throne of her young sons. To her allies, she was a shrewd protector of the Valois dynasty. To her enemies, of which there were many, she was the Serpent Queen. She hadn't been born into power. She'd earned it, with calculation, cold strategy, and rumor had it. Poison. The court was a powder keg. Catholics and Huguenots, France's Protestants, were one match away from civil war. Assassinations, betrayals, and plots swirled like smoke around the Louvre. Catherine's sons, weak kings, were easily manipulated, and factions fought to control them. But Catherine wasn't about to let anyone steal the throne from her bloodline. So she watched, she listened, and when the moment came, she struck. They say she had a cabinet of poisons, imported from her native Italy. They say she worked with secret apothecaries, learned in the dark arts of slow-killing toxins. They say her court was a stage, and her enemies were actors in a play they didn't know had already ended. And at the center of the deadliest scene was a banquet. It was supposed to be a celebration, an elegant gathering to bring peace between rival factions, Catholics, Protestants, nobles, soldiers, advisors. Catherine invited them all. The banquet hall was lit with golden chandeliers and lined with velvet drapes. Tables overflowed with exotic dishes. Musicians played soft lute melodies. Smiles were exchanged. Toasts made. But behind the walls, her perfumers had prepared something else entirely. Wine laced with a slow, undetectable toxin. A roast lathered in honey, hiding powdered arsenic. Silver goblets polished with trace amounts of deadly compounds that would seep into the lips of every man who drank from them. The victims were not chosen at random. They were enemies, rivals of the crown, Protestant sympathizers, even a few Catholic lords who had grown too bold. That night, Catherine didn't just serve food, she served judgment. And when the first nobleman collapsed, gasping for air, Catherine didn't scream. She sat still, calm, as though she had expected it, and then more fell. Panic spread. Servants ran, but the doors were closed. The guards held their posts. No one left. They say Catherine whispered a prayer while the chaos unfolded. They say she smiled, but that was just the beginning. Here's where the story gets darker. This wasn't Catherine's first dance with death, nor her last. Rumors swirled of her escadron volante, her flying squadron, an elite group of beautiful female spies who seduced powerful men, extracted secrets, and vanished. Some whispered they delivered poison in kisses. Others said Catherine used astrology and black magic to determine the most auspicious moment to kill. But one story, more than any other, defined her legend. The use of a poison cabinet, a secret chamber in the Louvre where she kept vials, powders, and tinctures capable of mimicking natural death. Disguised as perfumes and cosmetics, the poisons could be slipped into anything: wine, bread, ink, even gloves, even Bible pages. Victims would cough blood, hallucinate, or slowly waste away. No trace, no accusation, just silence. French courtiers lived in fear. A favor from the queen could be a death sentence in disguise. A dinner invitation? A gamble with fate. And when bodies started piling up, some within days of the banquet, suspicions grew. But no one dared speak, because who would accuse the queen when they might be next? One noble, the Duke of Guise, began to suspect her involvement in multiple mysterious deaths. He confided in his allies, but days later, one of his most trusted men fell dead, choking in front of the king. The message was clear. Suspicion was dangerous. And Catherine? She remained untouchable. But here's the twist. There is no official record that Catherine ever poisoned anyone. No documented banquet of mass death. No confirmed cabinet of poisons. So where did the story come from? The truth is more twisted than the myth. Catherine de Medici was a powerful woman in a world that hated powerful women. She was foreign, widowed, Catholic, and controlling. Her mere presence threatened the patriarchal order of 16th century France. So enemies whispered. Protestants accused her of black magic. Historians, often men of her time, painted her as a manipulative witch. Her political moves became poison plots. Her elegance became suspicion. The banquet? Possibly real. Possibly a fabrication. Born from the infamous St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, a real event where thousands of Protestants were slaughtered under her watch. In the public mind, she became the monster behind it all. So maybe the poison was never in the wine. Maybe it was in the rumors. Still watching? Good. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon. The aftermath of the so-called banquet was political chaos. Whether or not Catherine poisoned anyone that night, what followed was undeniably bloody. The St. Bartholomew's Day massacre occurred just days after a supposed royal reconciliation banquet. Protestant guests who had been invited to a royal wedding meant to unite the fractured kingdom were slaughtered in the streets of Paris. Catherine's fingerprints were all over it. She had urged her son, King Charles IX, to act swiftly against the Huguenots. Fearing rebellion, he approved. What followed was a state-sanctioned massacre, one that saw thousands murdered, including women and children, dragged from their homes and butchered. The Queen's image was sealed in blood. Nobles who had once feasted in her halls now feared her glances. Allies became enemies. Enemies became corpses. And Catherine? She remained untouchable. But behind the palace walls, France was rotting. Even her own children turned into pawns in her brutal chess game. Charles IX was haunted by guilt and died young. Henry III, her favorite, would eventually be assassinated. The Valois dynasty, the one Catherine had spent her life defending, crumbled, and still her legend endured. Catherine would die years later in 1589 at the age of 69, not by blade, not by poison, but by illness. And yet, her legacy of death and deception would haunt Europe for centuries. To some, she was a political genius, a woman who held a crumbling empire together through sheer will and cunning. To others, she was a monster, a poisoner queen whose smile masked a dagger. What's undeniable is this: Catherine de Medici understood the power of fear. She didn't need to poison her court. She just needed them to believe she could. That belief, that was the real toxin. It silenced enemies, it sparked wars, it rewrote history, and it made her immortal. Even in art and film, Catherine is rarely portrayed as a victim of circumstance. She is the villainess, the schemer, the woman behind the veil, the poison queen. And in every whispered tale, every shadowed corridor, she lives on. Did Catherine really poison her entire court? Or did she simply let the world believe she had? Was the banquet of death a real event, or a myth built from fear, massacre, and whispers of perfume-laced treachery? We may never know the full truth, but here's what we do know. A queen once sat at a banquet table, surrounded by enemies who toasted her with shaking hands. And whether they died from poison or paranoia, they died all the same. But for now, if you enjoyed this tale of betrayal and whispered poison, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a new chapter of history's darkest secrets. And don't leave just yet. Click the video on your screen now to watch another true story of scandal, deceit, and betrayal that history tried to bury.